Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of college basketball. I'm back with Boom Buster Believable, the series where I take a deep dive into Big Ten's men's basketball teams and figure out if they've boomed, they're a bust, or if they're right where they should be. Up next and fourth on the Big Ten preseason poll, we've got the Illinois Fighting Illini coming to you from Champaign, Illinois. Let's run it. So Illinois is currently sitting at 19-7 and 10-5 in the Big Ten, which is good for second at about 2.5 games behind Purdue. They certainly have exceeded some expectations. They were predicted to be fourth, and they've overall really have a pretty solid, complete team. Going into some key players for them. Starting out, you've got to talk about Terrence Shannon Jr. He's a bit of an interesting case given some of the legal things surrounding him this year. We won't get too much into that, but he is back with the team right now and playing at a super high level, currently at 22.1 points, 4.4 rebounds, 2.3 assists, a little bit less than 1 steal, and 1.2 blocks per game. So he does a lot of pretty much everything, shooting 78.7% from the free throw line and 34.6 from three. Right behind him, you've got one of the biggest names in the transfer portal in terms of overall efficiency. You've got Marcus Damask, not a big name coming into the season, but he really has shown in his first year and only year with the Illini. He's currently at 15.5 points, 4.7 rebounds, 3.5 assists per game, and shooting 87.6% from the free throw line. Another big returning guy that if you follow Illinois, you'll definitely remember him from the last couple of years. You've got Coleman Hawkins. He's another do-it-all kind of guy, super tall, but also very athletic. He can shoot the ball. Currently averaging 12.3 points, 6.1 rebounds, and 2.7 assists per game, as well as 1.7 steals and 1.1 blocks per game. Shooting 80.3% from the free throw line and 38.7 from three. So he's a very valuable do-it-all guy for them, and he really is a matchup nightmare for quite a few teams. And rounding out the top four, you've got Quincy Guerrier, who's another transfer along with Marcus Damask, currently averaging 10.4 points and 7 rebounds per game, shooting 35.8% from three. So overall, those two transfers being in their top four scorers has been a massive effect for the Illini this year. And that's made them into a very, very good offense. Going into some of those offensive stats, we've got the KenPom rankings. Illinois currently sits as the 5th team in the country in adjusted offensive efficiency. So they are a very efficient offensive team, and it has shown in a lot of their games. They will light it up from all around the floor, and as shown, they've got quite a few guys that can do it in various ways. But they're not that great on the defensive end, and that has been some of their downfall this year. They're currently sitting at 59th in adjusted defensive efficiency, which rounds them out for an average of 12th in the country for adjusted efficiency margin. In terms of tempo, they are a fast team. They are 59th in the country in adjusted tempo. And once again, being in the Big Ten, your strength of schedule is usually going to be pretty high. Illinois currently sits at 37th in the country. Heading into some of their key wins and losses, pretty early on in the year, they did get a key win at home against number 11 at the time, FAU, 98-89. So you talk about offense in that one. FAU has still managed to be right around the top 25 for most of the season. They've continued some of their success from last year. So that is definitely a key win for them. And putting up 98 is always pretty impressive. Heading into January, though, they did get a loss at home against a pretty mediocre Maryland team. We just talked about them here recently. They ended up losing 76-67. So some of that can definitely be said that Maryland's defense, on the contrary, is one of also the top in the country. So they were able to limit Illinois quite a bit on that one. But Illinois was able to come back and actually steal one at Maryland here in the middle of February, 85-80. So they were able to find their offense, but they also let a struggling Maryland offense put 80 on them. So they were able to win that relatively close game. But letting up 80 against Maryland is not exactly a great look, but that kind of just shows some of their defensive woes. And most recently here, just a couple of days ago, Illinois ended up with a loss at Penn State, 90-89. And that one was a big struggle. We'll get into some of the details of how that one wrapped up here just in a little bit. But the Fighting Illini are fighting for a spot atop the Big Ten right now, only 2.5 games back from Purdue at the top of the standings. This team has really been made by their transfers, as I mentioned, some of those two of the four key players. As much as returning guys like Terrence Shannon Jr. and Coleman Hawkins are a big reason this team has had this kind of success, the additions of Marcus Damask and Quincy Guerrier have really rounded out this lineup and provided depth that they simply wouldn't have without those two guys. Quincy Guerrier coming from Oregon and the numbers he put up was definitely the story of the transfer portal for the Illini. He's actually improved on his numbers from the Ducks last season, jumping from 9 to 10.5 points per game and from around 4.5 to 7 rebounds per game, as well as shooting the ball at just a general higher clip, both overall and from three. So he's definitely been a pleasant surprise. But as I mentioned earlier, the real X factor has got to be Marcus Damask. Coming from Southern Illinois, he's been a double-digit scorer in every single season he's played. All 4 of his seasons at Southern Illinois, as well as this season with the Fighting Illini. And he's proven he can do it all the same in a much tougher conference. Stepping up in a major way during Terrence Shannon Jr.'s absence, he kept Illinois afloat and elevated his scoring to keep their offense as dynamic as they are. And he really gives them a different look than most teams are used to seeing. He's utterly dominant in the mid-post. And if you give him essentially one-on-one in space, it seems like nearly every time he'll go to work on his man and either get a signature turnaround jumper or he'll back you down with ball fakes and get some type of easy up and under layup. He's a matchup nightmare for most teams that Illinois ends up playing. But the Fighting Illini's Achilles heel is no doubt their defense, with their last 3 losses being a prime example. Most recently, they found themselves on the wrong side of a late-game collapse at Penn State because of Coleman Hawkins missing 2 free throws with Illinois up 2, the Nittany Lions coming back down the floor and getting fouled on a 3-point shot. They make all 3 free throws and win by 1, 90-89. Before that, Illinois traveled to Michigan State and let the Spartans put up their highest point total since their first game of the new year, as Illinois fell 88-80. And before that, it was at Northwestern where they lost 96-91 in overtime and just couldn't find a way to close out the game. So you see the common factor here. Illinois can score the ball at a very high rate. And as we mentioned, Ken Pom has them as the 5th best offense in the country for a reason. But if you also can't defend at a high level, you're going to run into games where the other team is hot. And if you play too many shootouts like that, you're going to get burned sometimes. That's something that really can come back to bite you come tournament time. And Joe Lunardi currently has the Fighting Illini coming in as a 4 seed. And if they run into a 13 seed that can really shoot the lights out, don't be surprised if that's either a really close game or Illinois even gets upset. Now, as I'm recording this, Illinois is about to take on Iowa at home later today, which if they can come away with the win, they'll be back to 2 games behind Purdue. And they've got some very winnable games to end the regular season outside of a big matchup with Purdue coming to town in the beginning of March. Unless Purdue drops another game, which I hope they won't, I doubt Illinois will be able to get a share of or win the Big Ten outright, but they've certainly made their presence felt within the conference this year. But that's all I've got for today. March is less than a week away, and here on Running the Table, we cannot wait for it. I'm going to keep grinding these episodes out, so if you want me to cover a specific team, let me know in the comments. So stay tuned, like and subscribe for more, but until next time, I'm out.